Hello everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about structured query language. In this, I'm going to discuss about basic definition of data, information, database management system. Then we will discuss about structured query language introduction. And at the end, we will discuss about different types of structured query languages. So I'm going to start with defining a very important term, that is data. As because we are going to study about database management system, or we can say that structured query language, then we need to know these basic definitions of these terms like data, information, database management system. So data is raw facts or figures. We can say that like, for example, suppose I'm saying 23. So with this value, we can't identify the meaning of this value. Like, is it representing a simple roll number of a student, or age of a student, or weight of a student? We can't easily identify what it is representing. We can't find the meaning of this. That is what data. What is information? Information is we can say that process data. Process data is information. For example, suppose I'm saying like, my roll number is 23. That means I'm adding some meaning to this data, which is nothing but what? Information. Suppose I'm writing here, my roll number is 23. So here I'm adding some meaning to this data, which is nothing but what? Information. Then we can define a very important term, that is database. So database is a shared and organized collection of logically related data. So here the important term is logically related. What do you mean by that? Like, as I said that data can be recordable, like we can store the data, and where we can store those data can be stored in a database. So while we're going to make a database, it must contain a collection of logically related database, meaning the data we are going to store must be a particular domain data. For example, suppose we want to create a database for university, then it must include the data related to that university, like the data regarding faculty, the data regarding students, the data regarding result, the data regarding exam, the data regarding libraries, etc. So all these are correlated data. So while we're going to make a database, so it must contain logically related data. Like, while I'm going to create a database for university, I can store the data related to railway reservation, train schedule. Next, we have a term that is database management system. In a simple term, we can say that we have a collection of data, then, and those collection of data can be stored in database. And we suppose wanted to do certain manipulation on this data, then we required a database management system. So database management system is a simple software, or we can say that a program which can be used to manipulate the data being stored in the database. Examples: Oracle, MS SQL, MongoDB, MySQL, SQL Server, DB2. These all are examples of database management system softwares, using which we can perform certain manipulation on our database. As I said that, we have already discussed about database and database management system. So we need to know, while we're going to manipulate our data being stored in the database, we required certain language which can be used to perform such operations. One of the language is what? Which is normally used with the database, that is structured query language. So in this session, we are going to discuss about a database model which is known as RDBMS, that is Relational Database Management System. Relational Database Management System. So in Relational Database Management System, we store our data in the form of a relation. Or we can say that tables, in the form of tables. So to manipulate data being stored in the table, or to store, retrieve, or suppose do some other operations like update, those things can be done by a query language which is known as structured query language. So before I start discussing about structured query language, we will discuss about relational database management system. So this relational database management system is a database management system which uses relational model to represent this data. And here the data is being stored in the form of what? Table. As we know that every table must have what? Some rows and columns. So we store our data in relational database management system in the form of table with rows and columns. For example, here we have a data representation of product. So this product represents the table name or relation name, table name or relation name. And these columns, this product name, price, category, manufacturer, this represents your attribute names. And these rows, these are known as tuples or rows. Tuples or rows. Every relation must have two things: a schema and instance. Schema means what? Structure of that relation. Structure includes what? Name of that relation and set of attributes. Category, manufacturer. So here, the schema of this table will be this. The schema may include the type of this attribute and the size of this attribute with constraints. Instance means what? The collection of records being stored in an instance of time. So this particular time, suppose these are the set of values stored in this table. This represents what? Instance of this table product. So as we are going to discuss about relational database management system and structured query language, we need to know certain terminologies like rows, tuples, columns, attributes, domain, null values, cardinality, and degree. So we will discuss one by one. So as I said that in relational database management system, your data is being represented in the form of a table. And that table must include set of rows and columns. Each column represents your attributes or fields of that table. Rows represents records or tuples. Then number of attributes represents degree of the relation. Like for example, for this table, its degree will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 attributes. So degree will be here 5. Similarly, the number of tuples represents cardinality of the relation. In this table, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So cardinality of this table will be 4. In relational database management system, null means undefined. Null means undefined or unknown. Null means undefined or unknown. Like in this case, here we don't know the bonus for this employee with ID 3. So it is not having any value. This field represents what? Null value. Domain means what? A set of possible valid values for a particular attribute. For a particular attribute, the set of valid values is nothing but what? Domain for this attribute. So here, suppose the set of possible values are ICP, ETA, and IBS. So these are the only values we can store in this field. This represents what? Domain of this particular attribute department. We can take some more example to explain you about the domain. Suppose we have two relations. One is loan. Then suppose we have another relation that is account. And in loan relation, we have the attributes like loan number. Then suppose loan amount. Then suppose customer ID. Similarly, in account relation, we have account number, then we have amount and customer ID. Suppose we have defined the domain of this loan number will be, it must start with a capital letter L hyphen then digit. So this loan attribute must include the loan number values like L-101, L-102, L-103. Similarly, suppose we have defined the domain of this account number as that must be start with a capital letter A, then hyphen, then digit. So this account number attribute must include the value like A101, A102, A103. So in this case, suppose we have a question like whether the domain of loan number and account number are same, your answer should be no. Why? The all possible valid values, which is the domain of this loan number is what? L hyphen number. But this account number, A, capital A hyphen then digit or number. So that is why this loan number and account numbers domain is different. Sometimes people confused with domain and data type. They feel like domain is same as data type. But this domain, there is a very huge difference between domain and data type. Data type represents the type of value we are storing. Domain represents the possible valid values for that particular attribute. So in this case, if I say loan number, account number, they both have different domains, but the data type is same. This loan number attribute can have the type as string, or we can say that the character or varchar, and account number as same string or character or varchar. Next, we will discuss about structured query language. As I said that in relational database management system, suppose we want to perform certain operation on the data being stored in the database, like record insertion, record updation, deletion of records, modification of a table, viewing of table. All these operations can be done by a language called structured query language. So the structured query language is a non-procedural query language which is used, non-procedural query language, which is used to perform some database related operations on the database. So this SQL is just a query language, it is not a database. So if I say that Oracle, MySQL, MongoDB, these are database management system softwares. Using these database management softwares, we can create a database. And to create the database, we can use SQL, structured query language. So the structured query language can be categorized into 4 different types. That is data definition language, data manipulation language, data control language, and transaction control language. These categories are based on the type of operation being performed on the database. So the operation being performed on the database can be on schema or can be on data. If we are performing certain operation on schema, then the statement or the SQL statements or structured query language we are going to use is DDL, that is data definition language. Suppose we want to perform certain operations on data, then we can use DML, DCL or TCL. So as already we had discussed about the different statements like data definition language, data manipulation language, transaction control language, and data control language. So now we can discuss about what are those different statements we can use to perform certain operation on schema or data. So as I said that, like data definition language is closely related with schema. So whatever the schema related operation we want to perform, like suppose we want to create a schema, suppose we want to change schema or update schema, suppose we want to drop schema, then we can use data definition language. What are the statements we have? Create, alter, drop, rename, truncate. Similarly, this data query language, we can include it with the DML or we can separately define as the data query language. So this data query language basically used to retrieve data from the database. And the statement we are using to perform such operation is select. Similarly, suppose we want to perform certain operation on data, like suppose we want to do certain manipulation with data, like suppose we want to delete data, update data, merge data, or suppose we want to insert data, then we have such statements like insert, update, delete, merge, and call. We have some more statements also. Those things we will discuss when we will discuss in detail about these statements. Similarly, next we have what data control language. Like suppose you have stored some data in the database and user can access those data. Suppose we want to provide certain permission on towards this user on data, then we can use this data control language. Meaning, suppose we want to grant some permission to this user that this user can read data or write data or do certain operations on data. Such thing can be done with the help of TCL statements grant. And suppose we want to withdraw those permissions, then we can use this revoke statements. We will discuss in details. Why we will discuss in detail about this data control language. Similarly, This transaction control language is basically used with like when we are going to perform certain operation, transactional operation, like suppose we want to do some retrieval of data from that database. Suppose we want to do certain updation on the database. There we can use transaction control languages like either after the manipulation, we can save the state by using the statement called commit, or suppose we want to get back the original state after the manipulation, then we can use this rollback. Suppose this is a database and we perform certain transactional operation. So after performing the transactional operation, suppose we want to save the state, then we can use this commit. Suppose we want to get back the original state, then we can use this rollback. Suppose you want to get back the state from a particular point, not the entire database, then we can use save point. We can take an example. So while we're going to like withdraw some money from ATM, so at that time, after performing the operations, suppose your amount is not being withdrawn from that we can say that ATM machine, but that is being deducted from your account. In that situation, we can perform what? The rollback operation, so that it can make your database state as consistent. That means, so consistency means what? The state of your data, if the state of your database before the transaction must be same as the state of the database after the transaction. So this is all about your different types of SQL statement. So these are the references. So now I am concluding my session. So in the next class, we will discuss about DDL statements.